When you're a child, anything and everything is possible. The challenge so often is hanging on to that as we grow up. And as a 4-year-old, I had the opportunity to sail for the first time.
Ellen MacArthur was born on the 8th of July 1976. She's a retired English sailor from Standwell near Matlock in Derbyshire. She lived with her parents who were both teachers and 2 brothers, Fergus and Lewis. She acquired a early interest in sailing by reading Arthur Ransom's Swallows and Amazons series of books. Her first experience of sailing was on a boat owned by her aunt, Thea MacArthur, on the east coast of England. But what does she remember about that first experience?
I will never forget the feeling of adventure as I climbed on board the boat and stared into her tiny cabin for the first time. But the most amazing feeling was the feeling of freedom, the feeling that I felt when we hoisted her sails. As a 4-year-old child, it was the greatest sense of freedom that I could ever imagine.
She saved her school dinner money for 3 years to buy her first boat, an 8-foot dinghy, which was named Threepenny Bit.
Finally, I bought a tiny dinghy. I spent hours sitting on it in the garden, dreaming of my goal. I read every book I could on sailing. And then eventually, having been told by my school I wasn't clever enough to be a vet, left school aged 17 to begin my apprenticeship in sailing.
Ellen first came to general prominence in 2001 when she came second in the Vendée Globe solo round the world sailing race in her Owen Clark-Rob Humphreys designed Kingfisher. But now her sights were set on conquering the world's oceans again. So how excited was she upon the news that a boat was being designed to help her achieve this?
And I could barely contain my excitement as I sat in that first design meeting, designing a boat on which I was going to sail solo non-stop around the world. Now for this I needed a different craft. Bigger, wider, faster, more powerful. Just to give that boat some scale, I could climb inside her mast all the way to the top.
Ellen was about to set off on the toughest challenge she would ever face, a journey of more than 27,000 miles alone. On day 15, Ellen reaches the dreaded Southern Ocean, but she is already 17 hours ahead of schedule. On the 25th of December, Ellen explains just how remote she was at this point of her journey.
It was Christmas Day. I was forging into the Southern Ocean underneath Australia. The conditions were horrendous. I was approaching a part in the ocean which was 2,000 miles away from the nearest town. The nearest land was Antarctica, and the nearest people would be those manning the European space station above me.
She had covered over 500 miles in the previous 24 hours, but her lead over the record was now cut to just 1 hour. Her stress levels were high and she lacked sleep, and a monstrous storm was approaching. Ellen spoke about these treacherous times.
If we didn't sail fast enough, we'd be engulfed by that storm and either capsized or smashed to pieces. We were quite literally hanging on for our lives, and doing so on a knife edge.
By day 49, Helen had reached the Falkland Islands, and the Royal Navy had turned out to wish her well with the journey. However, the pressure is unrelenting. Helen heads again into stormy waters.
A few days later, we came out of the back of the low. Against all odds, we'd been able to drive ahead of the record within that depression. The sky cleared, the rain stopped, and in a heartbeat, the monstrous seas around us were transformed into the most beautiful moonlit mountains.
By day 57, she is now in the South Atlantic. So far, she has covered more than 22,500 miles. She remains upbeat and totally focused on the task ahead. And by day 71, she reaches the Bay of Biscay, with the home straight now in sight, and remarkably, she is again ahead of the record by 2 days. Ellen MacArthur was about to enter the record book after a journey of skill and the utmost bravery. Ellen's dreams of freedom on a boat goes back to her own little dinghy. Her dreams and aspirations of conquering the seven seas and becoming proficient enough to do it alone are quite amazing. From her early years, she had climbed what seemed like an unachievable task, yet with her will, determination and sheer courage, Ellen MacArthur succeeded where many others had failed. She was not only the first British female, but the first Briton to travel around the globe non-stop in a record time. Finally, upon her return, Ellen was asked if there was ever a time when she thought she may not make it.
There were some times out there that were excruciatingly difficult, there's no doubt about it. I have never in my life had to dig as deep as I did in this trip, and not just once or twice, but over consecutive weeks. I don't think I'll ever manage to communicate how difficult this has been, but certainly to come back here now and to look at it all in the past, it's amazing how time can heal things and the difficult moments turn to positive moments because you get through to the other side. And did I imagine I wouldn't be here? To be honest, I don't think I let myself, because you have to believe